afternoon we have Nick, who will be telling us about how to improve the accessibility of tutorials. Please make them feel welcome.
Hello, everybody. So, a little bit about me in 5 pictures. Hi, that's me. I really like blue hair. I love math. You'll almost never find me without needlepoint, just fun fact there. I really like cat pictures, particularly silly ones. I also like data science. And I'm the co-chair for PyCon US this year. Here's 3 that you really should remember. I play the oboe. I'm a chick. Put them together, and you have all of my contact info. So, why do I give this talk? I had a horrible experience at my first workshop. I went to a Twitter bot tutorial for beginners, and I was told I was stupid and I should give up because I didn't understand how GitHub worked. I didn't understand how Python Anywhere worked. This was the first coding thing that I had ever gone to. I ended up in the toilet, in tears, in the stall, like, I'm never coding again. I gave up for several years. It was bad. So my goal here today is not to tell everyone that what they're doing is horrible and wrong. My goal is to make it more accessible to people who are like me, so that hopefully fewer and everyone will never have to go through the experience that I went through. So, my goal today is to give you tips to make it better for your attendees. So, I'm going to start by assuming that you have your topic. So I'm not really going to talk about that because everyone has their own topic. I'm going to start with who is your target audience. So I have yet to go to a conference that has a definition for what it is to be a beginner, let alone intermediate or advanced. Now, this, you might think, is one of those things that, hey, everybody should know it. The problem with this is, if we don't have a base for our pyramid of learning, if we start teaching them up here, there's all this information that they are not getting. So we need to define what it is to be a beginner before we can actually define what it is to be intermediate or advanced. So I'm going to give you a very brief description of the way I do this. I consider a beginner someone who's setting up their coding environment for the first time. They've never really done coding at all. You have to give them every step. You also have to be there kind of holding their hand the entire time. This is someone who really, really, really needs a person to be there to ask questions. They haven't figured out how things work. They need you to be patient. There's the advanced beginner. They've been programming for a while. If you give them the instructions for how to set up their computer, they can do that pretty much on their own with the instructions, and they may occasionally ask questions on like the how-tos, but for the most part, if you have written really good descriptions, they should be able to figure it out. There's the intermediates. These people, you tell them what they need, they can figure that out. These are the people who, and I'm realizing I'm going to have to change this definition here pretty soon, but these are the people who are going in and getting their first job in the industry. So it's the person who started that last week. This is maybe their first or second job. They're still figuring things out. They still have a lot of questions, but they can do a lot of things by themselves. There's the advanced intermediate who, they're the people who've been working for like 2-3 years. They've been around the block a few times. They can figure most of this stuff out on their own if they go do research. There's the advanced. Come on, click. There we go. Advanced. They can look at a bug and kind of see a few ways that they could probably fix it, and then they can go in and it might not be the fastest, but they're definitely going to be faster than like the intermediate advanced person. These are normally like the senior people at work. Then there's the experts. There is a difference between advanced and expert. I am an advanced musician, but I am an expert in the oboe. I am not an expert in other instruments. So being an expert means that you are an expert in one thing. It may be multiple things, but you are an expert in a specific topic, and you may be advanced in other things. So when you're creating something that's for experts, know that you're going to have to kind of bump it up a little. But yeah, so here's the rubric that I use, and this is the rubric that I learned when I started teaching music. It's how I evaluate all of my students. It's a 6-point system. I normally only teach up to intermediate. So my tips for today are really going to be focusing on the 1, 2, and 3. The thing is, you can always remove content if your audience is more advanced. It's really hard to create more on the spot. So now you have your topic, you have your audience. The first thing that they see is not going to be you. It's going to be your title. So how many of you have taken or seen like linear algebra, calculus, multivariable calculus? Okay, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to create this tutorial that's going to put all of them together, and I'm going to call this Math Made Simple. And I'm going to cover all 3 of those topics. Now, does that make you hesitate just a little bit? You're not sure what's going to go on. You have no idea what's going to be there because there's a lot of stuff in there. And then let's pretend that you've gone to this thing and you don't think that it's simple at the end. Like the little demon on your shoulder starts going, hey, maybe you're not good enough for this. Maybe you should leave this to the people who know this better. It really doesn't help. So how can we fix this? Well, first, here's an example of one. Practical network analysis made simple. I found this off the website for PyCon 2016. I did not actually go to it. Something that I make a mistake of doing a lot is I look at the titles to determine whether I want to go. I don't always read the description. So had I gone to this, I would not have known until I showed up that it's an intermediate workshop, which would have been a problem. So we can change this by changing the title. We can change it to an intermediate level, which immediately tells them what level it is, guide to practical analysis. Now I say guide. I say guide on purpose because you are there to guide them through their learning journey. A teacher is there to guide, not to tell them that they're doing it wrong or invent the wheel again. You are there to help them find the best way to learn for them. So by calling it a guide, it makes it more open for them and makes them more likely to go to it. And it also makes them more likely to listen when you have advice. All right, so now you have your topic, you have your audience, you have your title. Let's talk about the content. All right, I really like screenshots with arrows. If you look at this here, it says to start a new bash console. All right, well, I see bash here. I also see bash console down here. If I didn't know from this arrow, I wouldn't know that this is the one I was supposed to push. So arrows are great, but another example of this was, I wasn't able to get a picture of it, but it was a click on this thing, and there was a drop-down with a drop-down, and it was in the second drop-down. I didn't know that because I had never used it before. So when you're writing your tutorials, make sure that you have like screenshots with arrows to show them where to go, because it makes it so much easier for them when they're first learning. So this is from a tutorial that I really like. This is kind of at the end of like the first summary for their introduction to Python. So really quick, let's just see what they've done. So far we've looked at the prompt, we've looked at the numbers and strings, we've looked at operators, we've looked at functions. That's a lot. Let's see how far we are. And that little scroll thing up in the corner there, that's not very far. And if you recognize that this is the second chapter out of 10, I don't know about you, but I start thinking, oh crap, did I just sign up for a semester worth of material in like a 2-day thing? It's a lot. It's really daunting. So something that you should do is break it up. There's been science to determine how much your brain remembers when you're looking at something. That number is between 3 and 7. 7 is the maximum number that you can hold in your head. However, 3 is the magic number. It's the one that you are more likely to remember. If you have 3 things in front of you, your brain can focus on all 3 of those things at the same time and have no problems. So having 5 maximum on your page is going to be really good. But also, if you think about it in terms of speed, how many of you have played those games like for your phone where you have to click a bunch and you get money for clicking? Yeah? There's a reason they do that. Every time you click and you get a reward, your brain goes, hey, something good is happening. So you get this happy feeling. So if you think about that in terms of writing your book for your tutorial or whatever it is that you're using, and you only have 2 or 3 things on a page, it means that they're clicking through this really fast. Okay, so they're learning something new. They're clicking through these pages really fast, so they're going, hey, look how fast I'm going. They're not paying attention to how far they have to go because they just see how many pages they've clicked. So it kind of helps play in with that psyche thing. So finally, and I personally think this is the most important, please test it before the event. I hate going to a workshop and the person's like, yeah, I finished this last night, it's going to be great. Because I'm one of those people who finds every single error and then like have to hand it over to the person and then they have to go in and fix it, which means that they end up skipping 6 or 7 steps in the like guide and then they hand it back to me. And then by the time we're done, about 3/4 of it has been done by the person who wrote it, which means that I didn't actually learn it. Now, you may be thinking, hey, I don't have anyone to test it who's a beginner. Let's just say. That's okay. When I was doing my student teaching in university, we were required to give our lesson plans to 3 other students in the class before we could turn it into the teacher. Because each person is going to focus on something different. So if we think about drawing a square, we could say, okay, draw 4 lines. Well, we could draw 4 parallel lines, and voila, we drew 4 lines, but we didn't draw a square. The second person might point out, well, hey, they all need to be connected. And then the next one is, hey, they need to have the same angles. Next one, hey, they need to all be the same size. So like each person points out something different that the first person didn't think about because they've been doing it for so long that they just think you draw 4 lines. So even if they're at the same level or above you, they're going to think of something that you haven't. So remember that when you have someone test it. I recommend having 2 or 3 people. If you can find that. If you're having trouble, ask me. I have a network. If I don't know and have time, I can find someone. But yes, please, please, please test it. It will make the experience for your users so much better. All right, so we have topic, we have audience, we have title, we have content, helpers. Helpers are important, but what if you don't have any? That can be really daunting. If you have 30 people in the room and you're not used to teaching, or even if you are sometimes, being by yourself is really scary. So here are some things that you can do to kind of make this a little easier. How many of you have been in front of or in a math classroom where the teacher is up writing notes and you're having to copy down the notes? Yeah, everyone? Great, you've seen live coding. Now, I know live coding is scary. You're gonna make mistakes. But mistakes are good. Mistakes are good because you show people that you can learn from your mistakes, 1, and 2, you can then move on. So you are showing your students that you make mistakes. You are showing them that it's okay to make those mistakes. And 3rd, and kind of most important, you're showing them how to fix it. Giving them a live example of, hey, there's this problem here, let's fix it together. Shows them, hey, we can do it. It's not this mysterious monster hiding in the corner that's gonna come out and jump and kill our entire code. It's fine. So yeah, so you're coding live, you've got 30 students in the classroom. What if they have questions and there's a ton of them? So something that I do is kind of a modified pair programming. At the very beginning, I have everyone who's been coding for, say, 2 years raise their hand. And then I have everyone who's been coding for less than 2 years raise their hand. If they've been coding for less than 2 years, they pair up with someone who's been coding for more than 2 years. Before they can ask me their question, they have to ask their partner. This means that I'm not fielding as many questions. It also gives the ownership of the answer to the students instead of to you. Which means that if they figure it out without having to ask the teacher, they get the little happy dance. Which means that they're happier about what they're learning, and they're more likely to remember it. I really like this picture. All right, so we have our audience, we have our title, content, we have, if not helpers, we have a backup plan, questions. Not from you this time. All right, so why do people ask questions? It's not to annoy you, I promise. They're asking questions because people don't understand, but they want to. All right, when someone asks you a question, there are times when you're like, that's a really stupid question. You need to remember that there is no stupid questions, only inaccurate ones. So what do I mean? You are asking them to learn a new language. If this were Spanish or Mandarin or some other language, if they don't know the words to say it, we don't get upset at them. We help them out. We help them figure out what the correct word is. We need to start doing that more for coding as well. Not everybody has the same background. One of my favorite words is the word set. I have found 82 different definitions for the word set, and that's when I stopped counting. There were more. There were still 2 pages when I stopped counting. So one word has over 82 definitions. So if you don't have the same background as the people that you're teaching, they may take a word that you say in the wrong way. You need to know that that's okay, and you need to figure out how to help them understand what you mean. Telling them to just Google it is even worse, because they may not know what to Google. If you Google the wrong question, you're not going to get the right answer. So help them figure out how to Google. Teach them how to Google. Give them a, here, Google this. Make sure that they have the answer on the right page, click it, and say, okay, you'll find your answer here. And then you can move on. Don't just tell them to Google it or Google the error and walk away. All right, but what if they're not asking questions? This is a big problem. So we need to find a way to give them the opportunity to ask questions. Oftentimes when people are not asking questions is because they're in a room full of strangers and it's really weird asking questions and being vulnerable in front of all of these people that I don't know, or maybe I do know them. Either way, I'm not someone who likes to ask questions. So sticky notes. Sticky notes are great. I love them because you can have 2 colors. Instead of, are you ready to move on, and having people raise their hand, you can say, are you ready to move on? Put your green sticky note on the back of your computer. If I stick a sticky note here, all of you can see it, but the people behind me can't. Which means that, no, I'm not ready to move on. I can stick my red sticky note back there, and my neighbors don't know. But you can look around and see really quick, okay, we need to hold on just a moment. Or, hey, all right, we're ready to move on. It's quick. The students can do it. They don't have to like raise their hand at all. It's just sticking a piece of paper on the back of their computer. They're more likely to do this. If you have anyone in your class who's colorblind, or you only have one color of sticky notes, write yes or no on them. It works pretty well. Another thing you can do is note cards. I really like the note cards because if you put note cards out before you start, you tell them that their ticket to getting out for break is that they have to write down at least 1 question from before the break. And then you collect them as they go out, and you now have a, hey, oh, look, there's 5 people who don't understand how functions work. Maybe we should go over it again after the break. You get a check-in halfway through, and then you can move on. I really also like notebooks. Notebooks are great because you are more likely to remember something important if you physically write it down. Also, they can take this home with them and have all of the notes, and maybe they write down their question along with the answer in it. So when they come back to this later and they do it at home, they have the, if that question comes up again, they can be like, oh, right, it's right here. All right, you have your topic, you have your audience, title, content, helpers, plan to encourage questions, and here's the most important part from me. I am willing to help you. So if you have questions or need help, let me know. Here's my contact information. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much. We have time for questions. Does anyone have any questions?
How do I make sure the quiet people in my workshop get an opportunity to speak up?
I recommend not giving them a chance to speak. That's what the note cards are for. I also really like having 3 Post-it notes, a red, a yellow, and a green, kind of like red light, green light. Yellow means slow down. Or I may be like, hey, if you're struggling, put the red sticky on the back of your thing. That way you still get feedback, but they don't have to come out of their shell as much as, like, or they don't feel comfortable. It kind of helps them feel more comfortable.
What would you suggest for kind of rapid fire way to gain as much information about where the people you're teaching are coming from without losing like half your conference to finding out about them?
A survey at the beginning. So the first thing that they do when they come in is you have, say, a Google form ready for them. You say, hey, can everyone please go fill this out? You then start your workshop with, hey, there's this 1-page info thing that I want you all to read. You have them reading that while you're looking at the answers from the survey.
Do we have any further questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. And everyone enjoy the rest of the conference. And another round of applause, please.
Thank you.